So I recently saw a new Indian horror film, and I went in pretty blind. I sort of was only vaguely aware that this was going to be a horror film, but I didn't know the plot. This is entitled MUNJYA, or MUNJYA, and it's directed by Aditya Sarpotdar and stars, sorry as I scroll, Abhay Verma and Sharvari Wagh. Not names that probably mean much to most English-speaking American people who might be watching this, but if you're familiar with Indian films or if you're from India, you might know who these people are. So, story goes a little something like this. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. Story goes a little something like this. The film opens, there's a young boy, he's in love with this other little girl. He's a little boy, he's in love with a little girl in his village, and she is interested in somebody else, and he's really mad, and his parents are trying to tell him, look, she's not interested in you, and he's like, I'm going to marry her, and he's really angry, and he's almost violently angry, and they basically, to punish this boy, they shave his head, and they start to put him through what I presume is the beginning of a ritual or a procedure for him to become I don't know if it's a monk or religious or if it's a punishment or what, but midway through shaving his head, he runs off into the woods and he swears vengeance. He's essentially praying to an evil god, saying an evil deity, an evil totem, I'll do anything, just let me have her. Let me be the one for her. Something happens really bad to the little boy. The little boy is no longer with us. Then we flash forward years later, and a very likable, bespectacled young guy in his upper teens, early 20s, is in his village, and he's a smart guy, and his friend likes to shoot videos. His friend keeps referring to himself as some kind of a Spielberg, and the love of this young guy's life comes back to town, and he's happy to see her. They were childhood friends. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. They were childhood friends, and he has a crush on her, and he finds out she's about to be married. Oof. So there's that conflict. And this is all pretty light and pretty comedic, which is weird because the opening of the film is dead serious, but this section is silly. One thing leads to another. This young guy accidentally winds up releasing the spirit of the little boy who died at the beginning, who comes to him in the form of, if you made Gollum from Lord of the Rings out of wood, like a Pinocchio Gollum almost, and then threw it in a fire, and before it turned to ash, you yanked it back out again. That's kind of what this character looks like. So it's this evil demon boy, ghost spirit, vengeful spirit, but it's really cheesy CGI. Like, it's hard to take seriously cheesy CGI, which I hate CGI, I hate bad CGI, and it takes me out of the movie and I can't take it seriously. So when this thing is supposed to be scary, it never is to me because it's, to me, laughable looking. And basically, this evil deity attaches itself to this young boy's spirit, he who is a descendant of this little boy, and he has to find this little girl who that dead boy, the deity, wanted to marry so that they can be together. Well, that doesn't quite work out. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. That doesn't quite work out. So the evil deity sets its sights on someone else to marry, and this boy has to figure out how to detach himself from the deity, how to get rid of the deity, and prevent the deity from claiming essentially the soul of this new, much younger person that he wants to marry. So it's an odd film because it's a horror comedy. It's a mix of intense horror kind of elements, Indian mysticism elements, and then just like goofy comedy. So probably more a movie for teenagers if you were a teen who was interested in watching a 2-hour and 20-minute Indian film. Probably Indian teens, more for them than the adults. I just didn't care for it. This is one of the maybe the only Indian film I've ever gone to see in the theater, and I try to see them as often as I can for the last several years, where I thought, boy, this really isn't very good. This is the first time I was at an Indian movie in the theater where not far into the movie, once the deity was revealed and I saw that it was going to be this really silly looking CGI and that it was going to be this kind of goofy movie, I was like, would my day be better spent seeing this through to the end for the next 2 hours? Or would it be just walking out of the theater, going home and trying to get some work done? And in the end, I regret not leaving the theater and getting work done. It's the first time I've ever considered walking out of an Indian movie because it was just, I'm not going to say it's not well made, aside from the CGI creature, which is terrible. It's well shot. The performances are pretty good overall, but you do care about this young guy and the girl he's interested in, and their families and things like that. But otherwise, I thought it was just really cheesy. So this is already out of theaters as I record this. This is something you can watch on streaming. If you do care to do so, this is MUNJYA, or MUNJYA.